Hello and welcome to Claymore Ceramics. Today we're going to talk about glazing. One of the things I've noticed is that oftentimes we focus so much on making pieces and getting the best piece that we can from our throwing that we forget that glazing is a very important piece of our work. And it can emphasize and change the whole dynamic of the piece that we're making. And so I want to talk about glazing today because it seems to be the stress point from a lot of new ceramic artists. And so we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to go very, very basic here. I am by no means an expert. I did study ceramics at Northern Illinois University, and I had some wonderful teachers there who tried to teach me everything that they could. So to the best of my ability, remembering my wonderful teachers, Manny Hernandez and Ron Mazanowski, thank you so much for all that you taught me. I'm going to try and show you the very basics so that here at the studio, you can understand how to use the glazes to your best advantage. Now we're here at the studio, and I'm going to focus on the glazes that are available to studio members. I'm not going to talk about purchased glazes, for example, from Laguna or Amico. And the only reason is because I want to start at the very basics. If you are at a public studio like we are here in Naples, Florida, at Claymore Ceramics, then you're going to be able to use the glazes that we have available. And that's what we want to talk about. And then as you progress in your knowledge, then you'll begin to understand more and more about how glazes can actually emphasize your piece and you can use them in new ways. So right now we're just going to talk about some basics. Now here I have a pot that I made. It's a very basic bowl, okay? And we're just going to talk about what I would do with this. Now, some of you are a little confused about the difference between a glaze, a slip, and an underglaze. And I'm just going to give you a very generic, so those of you who know a lot more about ceramics, you're going to be very frustrated with this because it's so basic. The differences between a glaze and a slip are important because when you use a slip, its main ingredient is clay. So you're going to use a slip on a piece of unfired work, okay? Unfired work, we sometimes call, in the clay industry, we call it greenware. Now, sometimes you're confused about that. What is greenware? Greenware means it hasn't been fired yet. And so on greenware, you put slip. And it's also based on clay, so what you're gonna do is, it's basically adding to the surface of your piece. And so when you fire it, it's not going to get that beautiful drippy look that you have when you put a glaze on because it's made of clay. So it's just going to stick. Wherever you put it, it's going to stay there because it's made of clay. And you put it on before you do the first firing. After that firing, that comes out, and this is a piece of what we call bisque ware. Now, bisque ware means that it's already been fired one time and it's ready for glaze. The pores are open, it's very thirsty, it is ready to accept a beautiful glaze. So what you're going to use on top of a bisque ware is something like this. This is called an underglaze. Now the name gives it all away. It goes under the glaze. So it doesn't have a shiny surface. It's not glossy. It goes under the glaze. Now, one of the things about this, it's not going to move. Like the slip, its main ingredient is clay, and it's going to stick to the surface, and it's not going to move. Now, another lovely product that we have here at Claymore is called Stroke and Coat. Now, this is considered an underglaze technically, but also has a beautiful finish. So it's not gonna move and drip and give you those beautiful surfaces, but it also has a shiny finish. So you can do your whole pot, painting it with Stroke and Coat. You can make beautiful pictures. It's a beautiful piece, shiny when it's done, but this is called Stroke and Coat. It's officially called an underglaze. Now, the last and final one I want to talk about is a glaze. Glazes are very complex. They are made basically of silicate, okay? The silicate is what gives you that beautiful, crystalline, glassy look, because basically it's glass and it melts when you put it in the kiln. So when that glass melts, and there are a number of other ingredients, and those of you who know more, this is a basic class. Those of you who know more, of course, there are so many more complex ingredients in the glazes to add color, to speed up the melting process, to slow down the melting process, depending on what cone you're firing to. For us, that's too complex right now. We're just gonna talk about what a glaze does. A glaze is basically a silicate, which is glass, that's going to melt onto the surface of your piece. And that's what we're gonna do. So one of the most important things today is to just understand the difference between those elements. We have, just to review, we have the slip, which is painted on before it's fired. Then we have bisqueware, where we use an underglaze. And then we have a glaze, which is a silicate that goes on top of your finished piece that will be going in the final firing for a glazing. Now, the important thing to remember about a glazing is that you have to use a glaze that is equal in temperature to the firing that you're going to do. Here at Claymore, we fire at cone 6. Now, this is important, and all of the clay speaks the same language. So when you find a glaze, if it's not a glaze that's at the studio, it must say fire to cone 6. And you'll see that on the glaze. They're very cautious about that because nobody wants their kilns ruined. If you ruin a kiln, that's very bad. And you may be charged for destroyed shelves. And you don't want that to happen. So be careful and use the glazes and experiment. In the next video, we're gonna talk about how to use these 3 things together: slip, underglaze, and glaze, and get amazing results. And you'll be surprised. Just like with making clay, the possibilities are endless. You can never get bored with ceramics because there's so much to do and learn, and new opportunities and different firing techniques. You're never gonna get bored with ceramics. Ceramics is amazing. It's like the best of the world. It's like the best of the art world. You can never exhaust it. Thank you for your time today. I hope to see you again when we glaze our first pots. See you soon.